Welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to day 3 of the 12 days of Christmas. Today I am sharing with you my classics TBR for 2025. So these are books that I'm definitely reading. I have lots of other plans for the year and other classics I would like to get to potentially, but these are the ones that I am fully committed to. I'm actually structuring this the same way that I did last year. So last year I picked one classic that was my classic for the month, and then if people wanted to buddy read that with me, they were more than welcome to do so, because in years prior I would have my classics TBR and have people tell me they wanted to read things with me, and then I'd end up with multiples in like 1 month and it just kind of was overwhelming. So I'm like, this is what I'm reading in this month, and if anyone wants to join me, you're welcome to. You'll notice there's a bit of a crossover here, because if you saw my 40 by 40 list yesterday, there are some of these on here because there are 10 of those that I have to read every single year in order to actually complete them by the time I have turned 40. So there is some crossover, but without further ado, let's dive in. So in January, I am continuing the spirit of Flannery O January in my heart, even though we have not done Flannery O January last year or this upcoming year, but I'm going to be reading A Good Man is Hard to Find. This is a short story collection by Flannery O'Connor, which is where I think that she truly shines. I've so far only read one of her completed novels. She has 2, Wise Blood and The Violent Bear It Away, and I've read Wise Blood and I did enjoy it, but I love her short stories even more. She just like packs such a punch, and I feel like no word is wasted, and I honestly feel the same way about her novel that I read as well, but I prefer her short stories to her novel. So just so you can hear what short stories are in this particular collection, there is the title story, A Good Man is Hard to Find. There is The River, which I have heard multiple people talk about. It's the one that I'm the most excited to read. There is The Life You Save May Be Your Own, A Stroke of Good Fortune, A Temple of the Holy Ghost, The Artificial N-Word. She wrote a lot about racism, so that's why that's there, in case you don't know much about Flannery O'Connor. A Circle in the Fire, A Late Encounter with the Enemy, Good Country People, and The Displaced Person. So there are 10 short stories in this collection, and I hope to get through all of them in January by doing just like 2 a week or 3 a week, or whatever I need to do to get through them. But her short stories are easy to get through in one sitting. With February comes the return of Feb Regency. So my classic pick for February is Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. I've not yet read any Sir Walter Scott at all. Maybe there are better ones of his that I could read. I own several other of his, but I feel like this is like his most talked about book, or at least I've heard it talked about the most. I don't really know anything about it at all, and the back gives me absolutely no information. So I think I've heard someone say that it's kind of like Robin Hood-esque, but maybe I'm misremembering that. March's book coincides with March of the Mammoths, where you try to read a book that's over 500 pages, I think. And the past 2 years, I have tried to read a George Eliot for that. One of them I've actually had to extend over multiple months, but this year I'm going to be reading Adam Bede by George Eliot, which is the next one of her works that I want to get to the most. It was kind of hard to decide between this and The Mill and the Floss, but this is the one that I'm the most excited about. I don't know anything about this book either. I'm assuming it's about a man named Adam Bede. And I really love George Eliot's books because I feel like she has like really flawed and realistic characters, which you don't always see in Victorian literature. A lot of times in Victorian literature, like the good people are angelic and the bad people are villainous with no redeeming qualities. And that doesn't represent very many people in actuality. So something I'm always impressed with her is that people have mixed motives. People who are like the good guys still make poor choices sometimes, and the people who are the bad guys still have some redeeming qualities sometimes, and those kinds of things. So that's something that I like really appreciate about her, is that to me her characters feel very realistic, along with her having some of the most beautiful writing ever. It does demand more of your attention, I think, because mentally I have to be focused to read George Eliot, but it's always so worth it. We've got another big book for April, and this might extend into May potentially, but May's book is really short, so it's okay. I'm going to be reading The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. I read Les Miserables a few years ago, I think the first year that I was on BookTube, actually, the first summer, and loved it. Like, what an amazing book. And I've heard some people say that they actually like this one more, but I've had this book on my shelf for years and I've wanted to read more Hugo for a really long time, ever since I finished Les Mis, because I just really, really love it. I probably don't have to tell anyone what this is about because probably most people are familiar with it, but I'm really interested because my only exposure to The Hunchback of Notre Dame so far has been the Disney movie, which I'm fairly certain is quite different than the book because Disney movies pretty much always are different from their source material. So I'm really interested to read this one. I know that he's gonna go on tangents because that's what Hugo does, but I also think that his tangents have to do with architecture, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy that or not, because most of his side tangents in Les Mis had to do with like the socioeconomic status of Paris at the time of the rebellion, or like historical relevance, and so a lot of it kind of like supported the story, I thought. People disagree, and that is totally fine. I found it interesting because I didn't know a lot about the time period. I don't know if this is going to be that or not, or if I'm going to be bored out of my mind because I've never considered myself someone who's actually very interested in architecture. The short book for May is 8 Cousins by Louise May Alcott. I love Little Women, and so far that is the only Louise May Alcott book that I've actually genuinely loved. I liked Little Men. Joe's Boys was okay, and I really didn't like The Inheritance. And those are the books that I've read by her so far. So I'm really excited to read this one because this is my friend Dia's favorite Alcott, I think. I think she likes it more than Little Women, which is incredibly high praise. It does have a sequel. I think it's called Rose and Bloom, and I don't own that, but I really want to read 8 Cousins. I think it's about a young girl who is orphaned and she goes to live with her family, like her aunt and uncle, and they have 8 boys, or maybe they have 7 boys, but she's the only girl that's there. So I'm really interested in this book. I really do like Louise May Alcott a lot, so I'm curious. June's book is one that I've wanted to read for a really long time by an author I've never read before, and that is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I know that this is often considered like a very important work of African American literature, so that makes me want to read it even more. It says that it was written in 1937, told in the captivating voice of a woman who refuses to live in sorrow, bitterness, fear, or foolish romantic dreams. It is the story of fair-skinned, fiercely independent Janie Crawford and her evolving selfhood through 3 marriages and a life marked by poverty, trials, and purpose. In my pre-booktube days, I really fell in love with A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is a classic that lots of people have read. And over the years, I've picked up a couple of other Betty Smith's books, and the one that I'm the most curious about is July's book, and that is Joy in the Morning. I'm pretty sure this is about like a married couple and their struggles, at least from what I remember hearing from a friend who recommended it to me like years and years ago, and that's pretty much all I know about it. And honestly, I don't even know if that's correct, because on the back we've got like movie pictures and just says that it's about a woman who's very pretty and 18 years old, and that the world naturally tries its best to corrupt her, but she's not having any part of it. And that's pretty much all it says. So I have no idea what that means. I found this old beat up paperback at a thrift store years ago, so I really want to finally read it. August's book is the only book that I don't own yet. I hope to own it, but I haven't really found like a good deal on it anywhere. So I'm kind of waiting to find it in a less expensive place, but that's Nathan Coulter by Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry was one of my favorite new to me authors that I discovered in 2024. So I'm very, very, very excited to read more from him. I read a collection of his short stories with my in-person book club in the summer, and man, I just really loved the way that he wrote. I loved the way that he expressed country living in Kentucky, especially since we live in rural southern Kentucky right now. It just felt like very true to the area that I live in currently, and so I just really, really loved it. So I'm really excited to read some more Wendell Berry. There's a possibility that I may try to read Hannah Coulter too, because I'm pretty sure Nathan Coulter and Hannah Coulter are married, so those stories kind of go hand in hand, but I'm pretty sure that Nathan Coulter comes first. So that's the one that I'm going to be reading. I've heard that you can read them like in any order that you want, but you know, there are crossovers of characters and stuff like that because they take place in the same area. So We'll see, but I'm like super excited to read more Wendell Berry. September is my birthday month, so I chose to read a book that I wanted to read for years from an author who has become a beloved author of mine over the past couple of years, and that's Ray Bradbury. So I'm reading Fahrenheit 451, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. I've not read this, which is surprising because I really like classic dystopian literature, and I know that this is about a dystopian world in which like books are being burned and that kind of a thing. So definitely like feels relevant. I almost read it in 2024, but the last time I read a classic dystopian, I read 1984, and I read that in 2020. And I learned that you do not read dystopians in an election year. It's just not fun. So I waited to save it for 2025. I've got another behemoth for October, for Victober, and I'm hoping I can get through this in the entirety of the month because it's really long, and that's Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I haven't found an Elizabeth Gaskell that I've actually really loved yet. I've enjoyed the Gaskells that I've read. I've read Cranford and I read North and South, but Wives and Daughters is often hailed as like the best of her works, even though it doesn't have a definitive ending. I think she died before she could completely finish the book, but it's finished enough that you can kind of like put your own ending in there, I think. And I think it's about a girl whose father remarries after her mother's passed away, and I don't really know anything else about it other than that. I know that it's many people's favorite Gaskell, so I'm really excited to read it. I am absolutely shocked that this is the only Russian book that is on my TBR for this year. Usually I have more than one, but I only have one. I might try to squeeze in some other things, and I do already know that I'm reading some Russian short stories in January. You'll hear more about that in my TBR video when that comes out. But I'm going to be reading Resurrection by Leo Tolstoy. So far, the only things by Tolstoy I have read are War and Peace, Anna Karenina, and The Death of Ivan Ilyich. So I haven't read most of his short stories, and I haven't read, I don't know if he has any other novels other than War and Peace and Anna Karenina. I haven't researched that. Those are the two that I mostly hear about. I haven't heard very many people talk about Resurrection, but I did have someone on my channel at one point say, you should read Resurrection. I think you would love it. And then I happened to find it at McKay's, and I was so thrilled. This is much shorter than his other novels, but it's still like a little over 500 pages, about 560 pages actually, but that's still like half the length of Anna Karenina, and Anna Karenina is shorter than War and Peace. So I feel like it's gonna feel like a breeze compared to those two. Although, funny story, Anna Karenina so enthralled me that I finished that book in 1 week. So we'll see if this is as enthralling as Resurrection, but War and Peace was not enthralling for me. I've actually done several videos on my channel about War and Peace, like things I wish I knew before I started, and then kind of like a was it worth it video. And I struggled with War and Peace much more than I did with Anna Karenina, and I think it's just because I don't really love battle scenes and military strategy in books most of the time. Anyway, I still liked it enough that I was really glad that I read it, but I'm really, really excited to read Resurrection, and it doesn't have that same intimidation factor for me that War and Peace did. And lastly, December. I feel like Dickens goes in December, so I am reading Dickens. I am trying every single year to read a new Dickens and reread an old Dickens, and I haven't decided which Dickens I'm going to reread in 2025 yet, but I have decided that the one I'm going to read that I have not yet read is Dombey and Son. I don't really know anything about this. Are you seeing a theme? There's a lot of things. I don't know anything about Resurrection either, and I didn't even say that. I don't know anything about this, but I don't need to. I am a big Dickens fangirl, as you probably know, and that's why I read multiple Dickens every single year, because I want to read through all of his works, and yet I don't want to read all of his works and then like not reread the ones that I really love. So that's why I read multiple Dickens every single year, and I am really, really excited to read Dombey and Son. I'm pretty sure that Stephanie read this like semi-recently and really, really loved it. So I'm hoping that I will too. I'm sure it has that classic Dickens humor, and really looking forward to that. This is quite a thick one, honestly. It feels like one of the bigger ones that I have in the shelf, but I don't know like how much of it is like notes and appendix. Not much of it. This book is 948 pages long. So hopefully I'll be able to finish it in the month of December. We'll see. Well, that is my classics TBR for 2025. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, whether or not you have read any of these before, what your thoughts are. If there's one that you're like really itching to jump onto and would like to read with me, let me know. And also let me know if you have any classics that you are really excited to get to in 2025 or that is on your list of books that you're planning. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me. And I will see you tomorrow with another 12 Days of Christmas video.